For years, when I was trying to lose fat, I would put mustard on things because it would make bland food taste better. And I always noticed I seemed to lean out more. And I thought it was maybe just because I was able to control my diet more because the mustard made things more palatable and gave a little bit of excitement to rather boring food. But now the evidence is actually getting really strong, saying that there's compounds in mustard that not only increase fat loss, but have huge effects on appetite suppression. The science is really fascinating. We're going to just jump right into it and have some fun with it. Please do drop a comment down below for the algorithm. This makes a ridiculously big difference in how these videos get out there. YouTube is just, they're like that now. They want engagement. So if you can just make it a habit to drop a quick comment, say hello, say thank you, whatever, and then also hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So the interesting thing about mustard is not all mustards are going to do this. And later on in the video, we'll talk about how to shop for the right mustard and how to kind of use it. But check out this science from a fat loss perspective. Mustard contains an active component in it called allyl isothiocyanates. We're just going to refer to it here on out as AITC because these AITCs are really the active compound. Now, what happens is there's an enzyme that's in a mustard seed. And once the mustard seed is sort of broken down, this enzyme reacts with what are called glucosinolates and creates this active compound. So this active compound is sulfur containing, which means that it has all kinds of different effects, but it hits a particular receptor in our body called the TRPA1 receptor. This receptor is like a sensory receptor for chemical irritants. So like our body recognizes that, whoa, this is like a profound, powerful, pungent thing, and it has a cascade of different things that occur. So let's first get into the fat loss research. There was a study published in Bioscience, Biotechnology, and Biochemistry that looked at the really unique effect of mustard and AITCs on brown fat activation, on actually increasing just the amount of heat that is released just from food. It's pretty wild. So basically what happens is when you consume food, those electrons go through the electron transport chain, ultimately create energy for us to move around, for us to do things. Sometimes through a glitch in the matrix or just through something called uncoupling, the mitochondria, instead of creating energy, will actually take some of those electrons, that fuel, and dissipate it as heat. When you dissipate it as heat, it's like a waste, right? So those extra calories are just getting used to make heat. But that's great for fat burning. Turns out that AITCs do this significantly. They tested various agonists, including mustard, AITC, on these different receptors. And they found that mustard increased the overall thermogenesis, it increased heat, but also decreased diffusion. So basically, it increased this heat within the body. So people could ultimately lose more weight that way. Now, what's going on, just mechanistically, because this will make sense throughout the rest of the video, is the mustard ends up triggering this TRPA1 receptor, which therefore triggers the central nervous system, which therefore triggers the fight or flight system within our body, which therefore triggers this cascade of beta oxidation and fat burning, very similar to like what exercise would do from a fat burning perspective. And that's just one particular way. And then of course you have the brown fat activation, like I mentioned, where some calories are getting dissipated as heat. It's really fascinating. But now let's talk about it from the appetite perspective, because this is where personally I have had experience with this. Mustard kills my appetite, and I like the taste of it. I used to put it on like a little bit of deli meat. Like if I was dieting hard, I'd put it on some deli meat and it would make it so that like I'm just done after a while. I get satisfied. I have enough flavor. And that's exactly what we're learning. Mustard is such a powerful flavor that it actually sort of turns the brain off for a little bit. And the brain just says, I've had enough flavor. And it turns down appetite. There was a study that was published in the International Journal of Food Science and Technology. It was published in 2024. And this was a human model study looking at 90 participants. They were looking at the impact of AITCs on taste, perception, and all kinds of things. So they found that when subjects had mustard in these AITCs, it would actually increase their perception of saltiness. What that means is that it was making it so that salty food would taste even saltier, so they didn't want to eat as much of it. But they also made it so that the brain, because the brain sort of responds to these things, senses that there was enough salt, so it kind of turns down appetite, but at the same time, it was decreasing sugary tastes. It was decreasing sweetness. Usually when you taste something sweet, you want to consume more and more of it. So in this case, less sweetness, and it was making it so that in this case, things didn't taste as sweet, so you weren't wanting more and more of it. Very, very interesting there. Bottom line is these AITCs decreased the liking of flavors. People would eat, and it's not like they would walk away from the food saying, I'm hungry. They would just be like, I'm good. It decreased what I call food noise. Food noise is like when you have so much going on with food and you're just like, this tastes good, oh my God, and you just kind of eat and you can't control it. But when the food noise is lifted, you're like, I'm just not that hungry. I could or could not eat this and be fine. I guess the way that you could put it is it increased, and the researchers actually said this, it increased that sensory satisfaction. It just increased the satisfaction that people got from food. And I'm gonna talk about how to shop for the right mustards because it does matter. Like regular yellow mustard isn't what you wanna go for. It's made with mustard flour, that's different. So we'll talk about how to shop for them. But I did put a link down below for Thrive Market. That's a 30% off discount link for your entire grocery order. So if you click on that, you get 30% off everything you put in your grocery cart, and they have a variety of different kinds of condiments and mustards. It's actually how I first got turned on to them. I'm good friends with Mark Sisson, who owns Primal Kitchen and later sold that, but he started with like Thrive Market, big thing. Like Thrive Market was a big piece for him, and he was all about making sure things were good quality ingredients with his condiments. So I became familiar with Thrive Market because of the healthy condiments that they had. Now they have a variety of other things, obviously. So that link down below gets you access to them and 30% off your entire grocery order and a free $60 gift. So really good quality stuff. Highly recommend you check them out. That link down below. There's a study though in molecular nutrition and food research that shows that there could be an actual direct impact on fat loss. You see, these were kind of indirect ways, appetite and brown fat activation. But what about actually like potentially increasing fat loss directly? Well, this study found in vitro and some in vivo models that these AITCs actually decrease what's called adipocyte differentiation, So it actually, for lack of a better way of saying it, it slowed down the maturation of fat cells. It stopped fat cells from maturing all the way into becoming big, gigantic, ugly fat cells. It did this by decreasing a protein that's known as galectin-12. Don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but this is a protein that essentially would, in this case, by blocking it, inhibits the growth or the maturation development of a fat cell at a genetic level. So imagine like genetically changing your ability to gain fat. That's kind of what we're seeing here. So it doesn't mean that you could eat this and it's magically going to do this for you. It's just a fascinating point saying like, there's other mechanisms at play here. But then there was a study published in Biochemical and Molecular Toxicology that helped us understand there's more going on from an anti-diabetic angle. Like if you're insulin resistant, it looks as though mustard and these AITCs through still this TRPV1 and TRPA1, both of those pathways, we end up increasing what's called GLUT2 translocation. This is a glucose transporter that allows glucose to get into the cell better. So they saw that in rats that mustard and AITCs increased PPAR, which means that fat was able to be used in the cell better. It decreased glucose levels because it increased the amount of glucose that got into the cell, and it increased what's called insulin receptor substrate. So it made it so that insulin was signaling better. The bottom line is from an insulin resistance standpoint, mustard has a unique effect on actual glucose uptake and then changing the cellular structure so fat can be utilized better. This is really powerful, and this research is really early there, so I wouldn't run with that to the bank. But it would make sense seeing all the other stuff that we know about mustard. Then from the inflammation side of things, there's a study published in the Journal of Cellular and Molecular Medicine that found that when they gave rats a high-fat diet to induce inflammation, AITCs actually blocked the inflammation and upregulated antioxidants. So via two pathways, essentially decreasing inflammation so insulin signaling can occur, and then increasing antioxidants so you can actually scavenge the oxidative stress that can cause further insulin resistance. Lots of powerful benefits. Now what you've been waiting for. How do you choose the right mustard? Yellow mustard is not what we're after here. Yellow mustard is made from white mustard flour. That is not the same thing. In order to produce these AITCs, you need the right kind of things. You need ground mustard seeds. So when you smash or grind a mustard seed, it allows for what is called myrosinase, an enzyme, to interact with what's called glucosinolates. Then and only then do you produce these allyl isothiocyanates, these AITCs. So if you have yellow mustard, which is pure white mustard seed, already low myrosinase, and it's a flour that's been denatured and broken down. So next worst is you don't want to go for like a regular cheap kind of spicy mustard. Most of those are still just yellow mustard, just with a few little grounds. They have a little bit of this stuff, but not a lot. Dijon is a great one. So Dijon mustard is made from brown and black seeds that have been smashed and mashed and then preserved with vinegar. That's why it's super pungent. The vinegar actually preserves this active AITC, so it makes it so it can remain effective. So definitely go for Dijons, and definitely go for the stone ground mustards or the mustard that has like the whole grain in it. Those are the ones you want, the ones that kind of crunchy when you eat them, because you're actually releasing the myrosinase and creating that chemical reaction in your actual mouth. So then it's as fresh as it possibly can be. So the mustards you want to avoid are the ones that say mustard flour, or the ones that have sugar or high fructose corn syrup added to them, or that don't have vinegar, or that don't have actual ground mustard. You want to see mustard seed or ground mustard seed. And it's best to consume these things with spicy food when you can, because then you're going to double that effect on what's called the TRPV1 receptor. That's going to kind of just get the nervous system effect. So think of it as like mustard being something that turns on your nervous system to burn a little more fat, sort of in the background. It's sort of like when your computer has a lot of tabs open. It's like the computer's being taxed and you don't really feel it, and you can feel the fan kick on. That's kind of like how it is for our body. It's like we have all these different things going on in the background that are burning fat. So as always, keep it locked in here. I'll see you tomorrow.